Hi, everybody. This is the ETech GPRA training. We are going to wait just another minute or two to give people time to join. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the training on performance measures collection for 2022. I'm Tina Diamond from OSEP, and with me are Brad Keller, Carrie Wills, Marielle McKinnon, and Jenny Schaff, our contractors for the performance measure collection. We will have time for questions at the end, but you can also type your questions in the chat space while we try to answer them at the appropriate time during the presentation. Please note that we are recording this training. In addition, can you please put your name and project name or project number in the chat box so we have an idea of who's joining us today. Finally, the training is being transcribed, so if you'd like to see the live transcription, you click the closed caption button on the bottom of your screen, and if you need any assistance, please say so in the chat. So the purpose of today's training is to describe the process of collecting the program measures and clarify what's expected in the 2022 data collection. Brad, am I advancing the slides? Oh, there we go. No? Thanks. We will describe the program GPRA performance requirements, suggest ways to enhance the quality of grantee submissions, demonstrate the website grantees will use to upload materials, review the schedule for data collection, and respond to grantee questions. Next slide. GPRA requires performance assessments of government programs for purposes of assessing agency performance and improvement. The Office of Management and Budget, together with the federal agencies, determines how programs will be assessed. Congress uses program performance assessment data to justify program funding. How does it work? OSEP reports progress on program performance measures annually to OMB and Congress. This provides an aggregate picture of performance. Their review of our performance data affects the continued funding of IDEA programs. OSEP also uses the data to improve the ETechM2 program's performance. So the data are very important. Next slide. And one more. The annual ETechM2 program performance measures include the quality of new service, product, or video clips, the relevance of new service, product, or video clips, the usefulness of new service, product, or video clips, and the efficiency of the ETechM2 program, or cost per unit. The quality, relevance, and usefulness ratings are based on an expert panel review. Last year, the inter-rater reliability for the ETechM2 panel was not as good as we would like. By enhancing the quality and completeness of grantee submissions, as well as bolstering the training for panelists, we're hoping to improve that reliability. Next slide. So how is quality rated? What does it mean to have a high quality product or service? OSEP has determined that there are two dimensions for quality: substance and communication. The substance dimension is, does the product content or the content delivered through the service reflect evidence of conceptual soundness and quality grounded with current research or policy? The communication dimension is the product content or content delivered through the service presented in such a way so as to be clearly understood, as evidenced by well-organized, free of editorial errors, and appropriately formatted? The independent panel of reviewers judges the quality of a product or service by scoring each dimension on a 4-point scale, ranging from 0, very low, 1, moderately low, 2, moderately high, to 3, very high. In addition, the score for the substance dimension is double weighted, which means that services can receive 0, 2, 4, or 6 points for substance. Together, the two dimensions can add up to as many as 9 points, and all scores of 6 and higher are considered high quality. How is relevance rated? What does it mean to have a highly relevant product or service? OSEP has determined that there are 3 dimensions for relevance: need, pertinence, and reach. The need dimension is, does the product or content delivered through the service attempt to solve an important problem or deal with a critical issue? The pertinence dimension is, does the product or content delivered through the service address a problem or issue recognized as important by the target audience or audiences? And the reach dimension is, to what extent is the product or content delivered through the service applicable to diverse segments of the target audience or audiences? The independent panel of reviewers judges the relevance of a service by scoring each dimension on a 4-point scale, very low to very high. Together, the 3 dimensions add up to as many as 9 points, and all scores of 6 or higher are considered high relevance. How is usefulness rated? What does it mean to have a highly useful product or service? OSEP has determined that there are 2 dimensions for usefulness: ease and suitability. The ease dimension is, does the product or content delivered through the service address a problem or issue in an easily understood way, with directions or guidance regarding how the content can be used to address the problem or issue? And the suitability dimension is, does the product or service provide the target audience with information or resources that can be used again or in different ways to address the problem or issue? The independent panel of reviewers judges the usefulness of a service by scoring each dimension on a 4-point scale, ranging from very low to very high. In addition, the score for suitability dimension is double weighted, which means that services can receive 0, 2, 4, or 6 points for suitability. Together, the 2 dimensions can add up to as many as 9 points, and all scores of 6 or higher are considered highly useful. How is efficiency reviewed? There are additional measures specifically for our accessible educational materials projects. AEM 327Z, Media Description Projects, and National Instructional Materials Access Center, NIMAC. We calculate the federal cost per unit of accessible educational materials funded by the ETechM2 program, video description funded by the ETechM2 program, and accessible educational materials from the NIMAC. Important note, the cost measures are collected through request via email from your project officer. So who participates? All ETechM2 program media services and all other 84.327 grants receiving funds in fiscal year 2021 from October 1 of 2020 to September 30th of 2021 participate in the Quality, Relevance, and Usefulness Review. I'll now turn it over to Brad Keller from SIP to discuss the data collection process.
Thank you, Tina. For the 84.327 grants, not the media service grants, SIP first asks for a list of up to 10 new products and 10 new services released in fiscal year 2021. SIP randomly selects one item from each list, and these are the new products and new services that will be reviewed. When developing your list, please remember you don't have to include 10 new products or services. 10 is just the maximum. Focus on listing the major products and services you released for the first time in FY 2021. And also, if you have more than one grant in this time period, tell us which grant the product or service belongs to. For media projects, you submit 3 video clips of your choice, but they must be at least 3 minutes long, and they must and you also must submit a new media description guide. So which panels will review your guides? As part of the description guide, Grantee specify whether the product or service is policy-based or evidence-based. Evidence-based products and services are reviewed for quality by the science expert panel. Policy-based products and services are reviewed for quality by the stakeholder expert panel. All products and services reviewed for relevance are reviewed for relevance and usefulness by the stakeholder expert panel. Evidence-based and policy-based products and services are of equal value. There is no advantage. It's not better to have evidence or a service. It doesn't make a difference if it's policy-based or evidence-based product or service. The qualifications of the reviewers are the only difference. Next slide.
What is a product?
For purposes of performance measurements, how does OSEP define a product? A product is a piece of work in tangible or electronic form developed and disseminated by an OSEP-funded project to inform a specific audience on a topic relevant to improvement of outcomes for children with disabilities. Examples can include software or hardware products, journals or informational articles, research reports, booklets or pamphlets, modules, PowerPoint presentations, manuals, or web-based instructional materials. For the purpose of this performance measurement review process, maintaining a website is not considered to be either a product or a service. Other items not considered products include databases, meeting agendas, materials developed for one-time use by an individual, archived chats, conference proceedings, contact lists, and progress or performance or continuation or evaluation reports. Those are not considered products.
What is a service?
A service is work performed by an OSEP-funded project to provide information to a specific audience relevant to the improvement of outcomes for children with disabilities. Examples include providing captioning, video description, Braille or other accessible formatting, conducting training, providing technical assistance, leading and convening informational meetings, and responding to inquiries. The new product and new service description guides are very important to the GPRA review process. They really require your time and attention. The guides are the primary source of information consulted by the expert review panels in making the QRU ratings, but they expect to also see the actual product if possible. That may mean attaching a document or providing a link. If you record a meeting, webinar, or training session, include a link to that as well as the PowerPoints and handouts. We encourage you to include supporting materials along with each guide, but the guide itself must be complete because the panels are not required to read through the supplemental materials in their entirety, but they usually do. Projects that submit complete, detailed, and clear guides with supporting materials make it easier for the expert review panels to rate products and services for their quality, relevance, and usefulness. SIP will distribute a set of tips for completing the guides that could be helpful, and you have or you will have received a copy to consult when developing your guides. And keep in mind that your project officer and SIP staff are always willing to have a conversation with you about this task and even review a draft before you send it in.
How do I write a good description?
Take the time necessary to develop a complete, clear, and accurate service description. This document is extremely important. It's the primary document reviewed by the panel, and the quality of the written description of a service correlates to a higher review rating. Please note all the tips mentioned on this slide. Read each criterion carefully. Respond fully and clearly, paying attention to two-part questions. Guide your reader to your response to your criteria so that they can easily see how your service meets the criteria. Share your description with others so they can ask clarifying questions and correct any inadvertent mistakes. And finally, proofread carefully. Mistakes in spelling, grammar, and other items like that can be distracting to readers. To give you a sense of the detail required, we pulled some examples from past entries from products or service description guides that scored well with the panelists. In this case, it's important to mention specific legislation or policy. Here's what one grantee wrote. This content was selected to support policies such as Common Core state standards for math and English language arts, standards for early learning from the National Association for Education of Young Children, state standards, and the Head Start Learning Outcomes Framework, and multiple content area specific standard development efforts such as college, career, and civic life, framework for social studies and state standards. Another grantee wrote, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Part B of IDEA requires that students provide a free, appropriate public education. To meet this requirement, schools must provide educational services designed to meet the individual education needs of students with disabilities. The captioning and description included on this clip allow users to meet this requirement by providing accessibility to students who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired, or deafblind. In both cases here, the grantee names the specific policy that links to the product or services and explains how. The second quality measure asks you to show that the product or service is consistent with OSEP interpretation and presented in a way that is clearly understood. One grantee wrote, the scope of the project and parameters for its operation are defined in IDEA 2004. The release of the new online system did not involve any new interpretation of the legislation or policy. The redesigned and improved system is consistent with previously established policies and procedures. A media grantee wrote, to ensure that the video content is formatted appropriately for the audience, the content is specifically focused on these users' accounts and involves a demonstration of the online system that walks the user through each aspect of the system functionality in real time. Editorial errors are avoided by having each presentation scripted in advance and reviewed by the project director. This also helps ensure that the video presentations are smoothly delivered, well organized, and well paced.
The first relevance measure asks the grantee to show that the content addresses an important problem or critical issue. One grantee wrote, the target audiences had varied levels of awareness of the spectrum of issues related to accessibility of educational materials and technologies. When charged with selecting, acquiring, and using accessible materials and technologies, both developers and consumers routinely express confusion about the meaning of accessibility in general, and specifically how it relates to materials and technologies. This service was developed to provide statutory and regulatory information, as well as practical considerations and steps that stakeholders with different responsibilities and interests can take to increase the availability and use of accessible educational materials and technologies. Next slide. The second relevance measure asks the grantee how they ensure the problem or issue is recognized as important. One grantee wrote, the importance of the content was established by the stakeholders themselves. This service was developed, delivered, and disseminated in response to multiple repeated questions from the field for some level of clarification on what it means for a material and/or technology to be accessible, what services are available from the center, and related projects funded by OSEP, and ways to work to increase accessibility of materials and technologies across the country. Requests for clarification came from both consumers and developers via multiple venues, such as stakeholder meetings, conferences, presentations, webinars, email and phone, and formative feedback.
The third relevance measure asks grantees to show that the content is applicable to diverse audiences. One grantee wrote, "The content is applicable across the center's wide-ranging stakeholder groups, early learning, K-12, higher education, and workforce development. Each of these sectors is responsible for providing accessible materials and technologies to learners who need them in a timely manner. Knowing why it's necessary to purchase, select, or acquire accessible materials and technologies, as well as how to determine if material or technology is accessible, are prerequisites to meeting accessibility requirements and the needs of all learners." The presentation was designed to provide clear and succinct information about the robust services and supports provided by the center to the highly diverse stakeholders involved in any part of the continuum of knowledge, skills, and actions needed to increase accessibility of materials and technologies. And I know these are long, so please bear with us. But we do think it's important to go into a lot of detail. The first usefulness measure, for that one, grantees are asked to show that the content addresses problems in an easily understood way that includes instructional and use. This grantee wrote, "Without captioning and description, the message of the content is lost on students who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired, or deafblind. Captions are written at a reading rate which is appropriate for the grade level of the student, and description is written using vocabulary which is age appropriate. In addition, all media is open captioned and open described, which eliminates any difficulty in getting to the accessibility. The website, the primary method for ordering and accessing content, is fully accessible and includes a detailed help center providing users with assistance in locating and using accessible material. Video dialogue and accessibility scripts are offered via a transcript feature, which provides for reinforcement and facilitates access to the content for those for whom video is not the optimum teaching medium, such as students who are deafblind. Further, all authored DVDs include talking menus for users who are blind or visually impaired." And this is the last one of these. The second usefulness measure asks the grantees to show how the content can be used again. So we've got an example. One grantee wrote, "Accessible content is available via a number of methods. First, and primary, is the project website. Teachers, parents, and school personnel may utilize video streaming or order a fully accessible DVD to be used with students. Student accounts can be established to allow direct use of materials by students. Secondly, the project provides media via other technological means, such as set-top boxes, which can be connected to the television in the classroom or the home, native mobile apps for tablets and smartphones, and supports inclusion in classroom learning management systems, which can support individualized or group learning experiences. Additionally, the interactive transcript feature provides text-based access to program and accessibility content." In addition to the examples that we just read through, we have an annotated description guide on the SIP website that you can review. It goes through a complete guide and notes where and how the critical content is presented.
How do I submit my materials?
This slide details the data collection methodology. Grantees upload a copy of their completed guides and any supporting materials to sipsite.org. And in a moment, we're going to have a walkthrough of that website. Be sure that the URL addresses for supporting materials for your product and or service are clearly marked, and limit supporting materials to no more than 5 per guide.
How are your descriptions rated?
As we described before, the panelists rate products and services against each criterion for high quality, relevance, and usefulness using a 4-point scale ranging from very low to very high. And ratings of 6 or higher across the criteria are deemed of high quality, relevance, and usefulness. So please give some thought to the products, services, and video clips you include. Sometimes a product or service that is innovative or exciting, it might not have as much evaluative information as those that are better established. Take a look at the description guide before deciding what to submit, either on your list of 10 products and services or in selecting your clips. This is the timeline for this year's data collection. The week of February 14th, media and 327 projects were notified about GPRA the GPRA process via email. By March 4th, which is Friday of next week, media projects upload 3 sample video clips and their media description guide to the website. And also by that date, 327 projects should upload their list of new fiscal year 2021 products and services. By March 14th, SIP will notify the 327 grants which product and which service was selected and request product and service description guides for them. Finally, by March 28th, 327 projects should upload one product description guide, one service description guide, and any supporting materials to the SIP website. I'm now going to turn it over to Marielle McKinnon, who will perform a live demo of the SharePoint site.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, so this is the SIP site, and many of you may be familiar with what this looks like already. So all users are going to navigate to the SIP site and then press the login button, which allows you to log in. And so initially, everyone is going to click on the Forgot Password link and enter your email address in the field. And this is going to be the email address that we're using to communicate with you. And then you will click Send Password. And what that is going to do is generate an email to you with further instructions so that you can set up your unique password. And the email looks like this. So it has your username and a temporary password. So when you go to the SIP site, you can access the link within the email to take you directly to the login page. And so you're going to use your username and that temporary password from the email to go on and log in initially. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over here. Okay, and so once you do log in with that information, you'll be taken to the page where you can actually set up a unique password. So, and just keep in mind, there are some criteria here that your password has to meet in order to be eligible. So the current password is going to be that from the email, and you can just paste that in there. And then the new password, again, is going to be the one that you create. And you're just going to confirm that password, and then you can go on to select Reset Password. Okay, and continue to homepage. So that sets up your password. And so if you need to, as you log in, you'll just use that one each time. And this is the first landing page that you will get to once you get logged in. And there are some other tiles here, but these are relevant to other services that SIP provides. The one that you'll need to click on is Conduct GPRA Reporting. Then once you're there, you'll click on QRU Review 2022. And as you can see, there aren't really many other options to select. So we've tried to tailor your view and your navigation pane just so that you can go on and click through to the relevant folders. And then ETechM2 panel documents. And here you'll see kind of two different folders. We have the grantee documents folders and the guidance documents folders. So the guidance documents folders contains resources, and that's where the copy of today's recording will be. The PowerPoint is there as well, and that's what that looks like. So you can get resources and information from this folder. And then the grantee documents folder is actually the one that everyone will need to access in order to find your individual folder for your project. And those are labeled with the grant number as well as the name. And once you locate yours, this is where you will be uploading your information. So we're going to use the first one as an example. And when you open that, you can either upload it by selecting the upload button, which allows you to navigate through your folder, and you can choose your files, or you can just drag and drop that over into this field. And I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. So, and as you can see here, I'm adding a document which I've labeled the grant number, service description guide, and just be mindful when you receive an email that will have the kind of naming convention that we would like for you to use when uploading your media or product or service description guides. It really does help out the reviewers to be able to have that labeled. And then I'm just going to do another one. Similarly, you will, if you can, please use the naming convention that we will provide in the email to label any additional attachments that you may upload to accompany your guides. And so, and you can always just look at that top bar there to see that you're in the right folder. It will have your grant number and the name there so that you can check. And that is all that you need to do for uploading, well, both your list of services and your, your guides. Okay, and that is it for uploading your information. I'm going to pass this on back over to Brad.
Thanks, Marielle. We have a poll question to gauge your comfort level with the information that we provided today and your desire for additional assistance. You should see it popping up on your screen. So please take a moment to note the areas where you'd like some more assistance, and we'll work with those up to try to provide that support. If anybody has any questions about the poll or can't see it or something, just let us know. We'll give you all another 15, 20 seconds or so to answer. Okay, well, thank you all. Go to the next slide, please. If you're unclear about what your center is to do as part of the GPRA work this year, please feel free to contact either Carrie or Marielle here listed on the page. At any point during the process, you can use the email address sip-gepra@westat.com. We can reach them at the phone numbers. Carrie's 240-342-0301 and Marielle is 240-790-2987. That's the end of the formal presentation. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or unmute and you can ask us. Sounds like maybe there's no questions. We'll stick around for another moment or two. If people want to speak up, you're welcome to do so, but you can also reach out to us after the fact as well. If you don't have any questions, you're welcome to go away, and we appreciate your time and spending some minutes with us today.
Thank you all for everyone who participated today. We appreciate it.